Hi, Emily.
Good, Nick. How are you?
Thank you so much for saying yes to be interviewed today, Emily. For our listeners, I'd like to introduce myself formally. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled Your Words. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, before we start our conversation, I'd like to read a bit of your introduction and then we can get right into. So, hello everyone. We have Emily. Oh, what do I pronounce
Aborn, like acorn with a B. Yeah.
Okay, Emily Aborn here with us. She's a content copywriter, speaker, and a fellow podcaster. She's collaborated with thousands of individuals in over 100 industries as a copywriter. Now she brings personality, creativity, and message to life as she guides others to build community and relationship-based business. For fun, she enjoys word games, reading, listening to podcasts, and hiking with her husband, Jason, and their dog, Clyde. Oh, that's so cute.
Thank you.
Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation, Nicolette.
Um, okay, for our listeners, just to give a sneak peek. So today is of a rush for me for the host. So Emily is kind of to wait up, and now we're here. So Emily, before we get right into the nitty gritty of things, can you share with us first what was it like growing up as an Emily?
Oh my gosh, that is such a funny question. I love it. Okay. When I was being born, my mom hadn't chosen a name for me yet. She had the name of either Amanda or Emily, and she wasn't 100%. She was a single mom, so she didn't 100% know which one she was going to go with. And when I was born, she said, "Oh, it's an Emily." And I always think about I think about this question a lot. Like, what would it be like to have the name Amanda? Like that, I do think that our names shape who we are, right? And it also shapes people's perspective of who we are. So I'm gonna say it like this. I started out living with my mom and her best friend and a bunch of other kids that her best friend had. So I was already kind of like in the mix with a lot of kids around me all the time. When my mom got married, she had 3 more children. So I have actually 3 little brothers. So I've always been around a lot of children and a lot of people. And I'm able to be very, very like outgoing and responsible and responsive and engaged and things like that. I think because of all that, like kind of chaos when I was younger. Um, During like my high school years, it was kind of a shock for me because I didn't actually go to school until high school. I was homeschooled and I didn't have a lot of like friends my own age. I had like a lot of adult friends and I babysat a lot. So I had like a lot of people on either side of the spectrum, but nobody like really my own age. So when I got to high school, I was shy, I was quiet, I didn't talk to anybody. I got bullied a little bit like for just like the way I looked. And being nerdy, I guess. And so that was my high school experience. But then I like came out of my shell and really like started to be outgoing again and I think own my personality again, you know? So I think that's what it was like. It was sort of like a yo-yo between trying to figure out who I really am, who people expect me to be, and what I kind of am putting out into the world, if that makes any sense.
I love it. Okay, so my podcast is a lot about self-worth, and it's also because the input that I kind of lost myself during COVID, and I had my own trauma that overcome then, and still healing at this point. But happy to report that I'm way better than was 5 years ago, and I really resonate with the said your that yo-yo, right? That what you're with, like and I had so many questions when you started sharing your story. The moment you said it's either Amanda or Emily, I could immediately picture Amanda, you as Amanda reality. You could totally pass Amanda as well. Yeah. I love that. I always believe, okay, I don't know if I'm watching too much of, the Marvel um movies, like I believe in alternate.
I
Oh,
do too. I do too. I'm glad
right? Like
I'm glad I'm an Emily in this universe.
like I've always imagined, I've always had this dreams of certain having certain occupations. So I wanted to become a pilot so badly, but then I know somehow different universe I'm already a pilot. I mean, that's just an example. Right now I'm speaking. So I guess it's a tendency also why I changed a lot of my industries when I was in my career. So right now, to be honest, just to share with you, I just moved out of my 9 to 5 and just started podcasting 2023 June. So it's just 1 year in right now. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot to learn. A lot to learn from different people, seasoned people like you. You've been doing this for like, wow.
And still learning all the time, just like you. You know what I mean? Like I think it's just every single time you sit down to do an interview
Mhm.
or to be a host, you learn something new every single time. That's the beauty of it, you know?
Preach. So, Emily, you're a seasoned copywriter. This is something that I need to learn as well. My content right now that I'm producing for this podcast and my new venture, which is again to share with you, I'm venturing into therapy and life coaching. So,
Yeah.
share with us is curiosity and how is.
Okay, I think it's helpful to start how I learned about it. Because I am a copywriter, and I don't think we always think of like things like bringing curiosity necessarily into our copy. It's just not really like that's not really we're usually talking about like how to get sales, how to get leads and yeah, exactly. How to put our message out there. So I learned about curiosity marketing because I was taking a course on search engine optimization. I was like trying to work on my skills in that area and like refine some of the things I was doing. And one of the assignments was that we had to take a topic and like basically do 8 blogs or 8 pieces of content around that topic. And so I chose curiosity and I was like, well, let's just see what I can do with this topic. So from curiosity, I ended up creating like podcasts and blogs and social media posts. And I really started digging into it and learning more about like, what actually is curiosity and what role does it have at all in our marketing? So I like to think of curiosity, to your point of changing your careers and your path different times and dreaming of things that you've wanted to become. It's a pull. It's like this inner kind of like tugging to follow one thing or another, right? Like it's sort of like the breadcrumbs, but it's our own internal breadcrumb compass, okay? So as marketers, as business owners, as podcasters, we can use not in a nefarious way, but like we can take the curiosity that's already in people and say like, hey, let's guide your attention this way, or like, what if I could lead you down this path, and that's I think it's just an invitation to people to kind of like lean in more to what you're creating and what you're doing and how you can help them. So with hypnotherapy, I mean, that's a great example because it naturally lends itself to curiosity. People probably have a lot of questions about hypnotherapy. They probably have a lot of misperceptions about hypnotherapy and what it is. And so it's up for you to take that like, okay, what are all the questions they have? What are the answers I have? And how can I bring them to those answers, but without making it like I've given you all the solutions, you can go do it for yourself, right?
A taste
Yes. It's
of
like I
what's to
like to
come.
yes, there's a proper term for it. It's called the curiosity gap, and it really is that. It's like taking like what you want to know and what I know and kind of like making a little bit of a gap, just like a little bit, because that's what pulls us along. What pulls us along in the plot of a movie or in a book that we're reading is we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know all the answers. We don't know what's going to happen next, you know? And that's what keeps us watching. That's what keeps us reading. That's what keeps us engaged. So it's kind of looking at like, well, how can I do that in my own content and in the things that I'm sharing with my audience, where I'm not giving them all of the answers and all of the solutions, but I'm helping to guide them along and keep it interesting.
Oh my God. I am curious.
Hey,
You are really a good marketer because you got me
hey,
hooked right now. I want to know more, Emily. Okay, so I just want to pick your brain a little bit, and we can use my case as the case study, my situation. So, for example, if okay, hypnotherapy, you're saying that curiosity gap. So, do I your advice? Do I need to go into like what you did and learn SEO and then find about the basics and then get some of the case studies in the apply it to my own circumstance, I would say, which is going into how should I navigate?
okay.
Because right
SEO
now I'm
is,
just
yeah.
trying.
SEO is pretty specific to the to the work that I do because I help people with website copy. So I wouldn't say that that's necessarily, yeah.
Right. Okay.
But I will say here's a lesson from SEO that any business owner can
Mm-hmm.
take. And it is simply, and I do
Mm-hmm.
think this is really like fundamental for any of us in our marketing and our businesses, is putting yourself into the mind and shoes of your customer. And I don't mean putting yourself into what you hope is in their minds, like what you want them to be thinking or what you want them to be feeling and experiencing, really listening to what they're feeling and what they're experiencing and what it's like on the other side. So let's go back to hypnotherapy, for example. And what is one of the things that you can help people with hypnotherapy?
Unrooting their self-limiting beliefs or
Okay,
feelings.
okay. So this is actually a perfect example because as a person that is hearing you say that, I might be saying to myself, I don't have any self-limiting beliefs to unroot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know necessarily that I'm not worthy. How does it show up for
Mm-hmm.
me in my life? What does it look like in my everyday life if I have limiting beliefs? What does it look like for me in my everyday life if I don't feel worthy? What am I, as your client, actually telling myself? Am I looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh God, like, you'll have to tell me, like, what does that actually look like in everyday life? Because that's where you start generating the language
Oh,
they're using. And this actually brings me to one of the things that you want to watch when it comes to creating curiosity. And it's not using words that are vague or maybe like your own industry jargon, like your own industry sort of speak, because the person that you're likely trying to help and reach, they don't use that kind of language. They're using everyday language. Like, I think maybe one example would be you're a person who loves nice clothes and you have like a few items that you just really, really love, but you won't wear them because you don't feel worthy of wearing them except for like on special occasions, or you don't feel like maybe you can. That's like a kind of tiny example, but maybe that's one that like people would relate to. Like, oh, I don't feel worthy to wear this just because it's an everyday thing, or I don't want to use my good china, unless it's like a special occasion.
oh
So
yeah,
maybe it's, yeah,
my
yeah. So
mother.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe it's
my
like
mother.
little tiny things like that. Like, are you not worthy of like living an amazing, abundant life every single day and just like enjoying the things you really love in life? You'll have to think of more examples for me because my mind is like drawing a blank. I would have to be like sitting down writing them out.
So is this like generated by me, or is there like a platform I should go to? Like I go to Google because I see people like what are the trending searches that 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 people are looking at, like the trending topics about that. And
Yeah, depressed is that's
yeah,
a good one. That would be a good one.
yeah.
I mean, this is where like I think some of the AI tools are helpful because So I'm
Okay.
not like a big fan of AI generated content, meaning I don't want AI to write it for you or to create it for you. But I
Right.
think AI can be helpful in understanding more about our ideal clients and and what their pain points are. So like you could actually even ask ChatGPT, for example, if somebody was experiencing self-limiting beliefs or feelings of lack of worth, how would that maybe show up in like an everyday, give me like 5 everyday examples of how that shows up in their life, right? And ChatGPT will definitely generate them for you. And if it doesn't do a nice enough job, if it's not like clear enough, you can just keep asking it questions to make it clearer and clearer and clearer until you can even give it a person. You can say like, what does this look like for a working mom? What does this look like for a career woman? So you can actually even have it be different examples within that. And then you can take those and turn those into things that where you're specifically talking to that person and like showing them themselves, which is such a powerful way to create curiosity. Because let me ask you this. What are we most curious about? Like as humans, we are most curious about ourselves and things that have to like that revolve around ourselves, right? Like that is just a human thing. So if something,
Thing.
yeah, like if something reflects us or speaks to us, we're like, ooh, tell me more. I want to know more about that.
World
So,
gravitate to like,
yeah,
ooh, okay, she's speaking my language.
yeah.
Oh my God, Emily, I love you already. I
You're
I,
so
I
sweet.
can generate some content tomorrow or yeah, maybe tomorrow because it's gonna be late for me after this. But so okay, so to recap, you're saying that I could on this AI tools and tell. So for example, how would it show up as a person who lacks this confidence, like
Yep.
on a mom, on a overworked man or women between 20 to 30.
Yeah.
How
What
does
is
it
it?
show up? And then
And
refine.
like think of specific life examples. So like what does it show up when they go to ask their boss for a raise? Or what does it look like when they're on a team, right? And they have an idea and they don't want to share the idea because they're afraid of what somebody would say. So you really can get kind of like into their mind and into their life. And that, I mean, that is like the number one starting point for marketing. And it's a great way to create curiosity because people relate. Curiosity is about inviting them, right? Pulling them along. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, like,
Yeah. So
mhm.
so that was a kind of a twofold answer. Like I want to encourage everybody, and myself included. I make this mistake still all the time. I can get really bogged down in like these words that don't really mean anything to the person on the other side, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Just because we want to look clever, or at least me, I want to look
yeah,
clever and I want to look professional, but then it's not being, nobody's engaging. But then when
right.
I put it out there, just like some layman description or just like what I resonate with normally, and
Yep.
then you
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And the other one I love, which I think kind of
awesome.
relates to this, is not like I try to not give people the answer for them.
Ah.
So if I'm sharing a blog or a podcast, I don't want to say, well, here's the 5 ways to do XYZ. Like I want to say like here are 5 ideas, or I would love to know if you try these things, or here's how it might apply in different situations. Because you don't really like I don't think it's helpful for people when we just close the loop. Because what that does is they're like, okay, great, got my answer, moving on,
I'm
right?
done. My
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So
I have my
keeping nice,
solution.
exactly. So like keeping nice open loops and not in like an elusive way, not in a shysty way, but just like keeping
Yeah.
keeping open loops. Another way to do it as a podcaster is to say, I'm really excited for next week's episode because next week we're going to be talking on this. We're going to be building on this topic and getting into blah, blah, blah. So I do that a lot with my podcast. I'm like, and next week we're going to be talking about XYZ or how to apply what we talked about today. So it just keeps the loop open and people are like, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to the next one. Or I'm already excited for the next one.
Such a
Fun.
gem.
It's
You.
fun. It's fun. I'm telling you. And so, yeah, so really the way like all I got so into this was just I explored curiosity until I was just like, oh my gosh, I am so curious about curiosity. So it really like got me fascinated and I was like, there is something here. And it's a topic I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but it's super, super important. It's basic, but it's super, super important.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think at least on
Mm-hmm.
emotion. I love it. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Okay. My next question was like, it's gonna be what are some things to add to our content engage? And I think
Yeah, like I think really specific language, like we talked about. I also think adding pieces of your personality and showing your personality is another great way to create curiosity. Again, not being elusive or like vague, but just like, this is who I am because we connect with each other on those things too. Like at the beginning, when you read my bio and you were like, she likes hiking with her husband, Jason, and their dog, Clyde. Then you're like, oh, that's so cute. Like it creates a mental picture for you and we relate on we relate somewhere in there. Like that's a topic for conversation in and of itself. So I think showing our personality in our businesses is so, so important. And I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't want to get personal. I'm like, well, it's the time to get personal. It's really time to let our
yeah,
personality shine.
because exactly. And I was just reading this, I think yesterday or the day before. People buy with emotions and justify it
Mhm.
with logic. So anything that you're putting out there, as long as like on an emotional level, it will entice them to conceive for more. So thank you so much because today I was just churning out some content on my Instagram and we said the personal anecdote. I think I should how I relate to, for example, my let's say the podcast that I just released, and then typically I have a summary and then how I relate to that, and then I give my, for example, offering how to help you with this. So now I also think that there needs to be a balance between um there's only so much research you can do, but then also to I don't want to say leave it to chance because it's too vague, but yeah. I don't know if you're getting me. Just be authentic,
Yep.
but then do your
Yep.
research
Yep. Yep. I mean,
because people will be.
marketing, copy, it's all business ownership. It's an art and a science, right? Like we can read
That's right.
frameworks and
Yeah.
follow formulas and research until we're blue in the face. And sometimes the most random thing happens that people resonate with. And sometimes the most non-proven technique ends up working for your business. Like it's just it's a fluke. Every single little thing is like a little fluke at the end of the day. So I try to follow best practices and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I am just having fun. I don't
Dish it.
care if yeah, I don't
Yeah.
care if my title is SEO friendly. I don't care. I'm just doing this because this is something I want to create. So there has to be a
I
balance to that.
yeah. Oh, so I'm not completely wrong here. Okay.
No.
Balance.
Yeah, so some of it we talked about with the complex language and the jargon. Leading the closing the loop is also like leading the witness, right? So like telling them what you think you want them what telling them what you want them to believe or to think, I think is something that like that shuts down curiosity. And it can actually create like them putting up their defenses, right? Like that's not accurate or that's not true or that's not me. So telling somebody what you want them to think is a way to shut down curiosity. And then I like to remind people like using all caps, using unpopular opinion, using emojis, that's not creating curiosity. That's just yelling at people. Right?
Annoyance.
So like yeah. And here's another one is and I am so guilty of this. So like my hand is raised right here, but not giving people clear calls to action. So even in today's day and age, people
Oh.
still ask me, what's a link in bio? Or what are the show notes? How do I find the show notes? So I mean, you don't want to dumb things down for people, But I do want to be clear. Like if I'm saying the show notes, I will say, for those of you who don't know what show notes are, which is a lot of people still, it's in the podcast app. You have to actually click the episode, and there's usually like a little eye icon, or there's something to expand upon the episode. That's the show notes. I might just say something simple like that. It took me 2 seconds, and it helps people that have no idea what the show notes are know how to take the next action. Same thing with Instagram. Like, I mean, you don't have to be like, for those of you who don't know, the link in my bio is that thing next to my profile. But, just say like, or send, you can say link in my bio, or send me a message if you get lost, like something like that.
Very
and
clear.
then I think on our webs, I think for people doing websites, like with the buttons, just being clear about like work with, buttons that are clear on what they're doing. So like work with me, learn more, things like that. Like you can totally
right.
Yes. And totally, I love having fun with buttons. So you can be cutesy and fun, but just make sure that it's still clear. Like I might do a button that says like, are you ready to say I have a tagline that says like, are you ready to get started? And then my button might say, yes, I was ready to get started yesterday. It's pretty clear that that's going to contact me, so like they click the button, it's going to my contact page. But I also have other opportunities for them to click that contact page, like kind of throughout the site, so that they know that's an easy way to get to the next step. And everything is pretty simplified on my menu, like clear, click, click, click.
Anything that entices them, but also clear, just make their lives easier.
Yeah.
But enough.
Yes.
Why are humans so complicated yet simple?
We
yet
are complicated.
Okay.
And I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
There are people in this world who are genuinely not going to be curious, and there are people in this world that are not really curious in much at all. And that's okay too. So recognize that those people are out there. Those aren't your people. Those aren't the people you're trying to speak to. You're really speaking to the people that are open, that are ready, that are waiting for the next step, and you want, like, I would just like, if you are doing anything kind of like mentally or emotionally, like just open up your energy to that and don't worry about the others, like don't worry about trying to capture all the attention, capture all the people. Like if they're not interested in you and what you're offering, then like, that's okay. That's not your person.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your tribe will be good to you.
Yeah.
I believe that too. Sometimes I get discouraged when when I'm producing content and I'm like, why is nobody like engaging? Oh, that they're watching it because the reels number, they go up, but then it's okay, never mind. Again, like you said, content, business, entrepreneurship, it's all an art, right? So I have to start treating it that way. Yes, the frameworks to follow, full business that that made it before us, but then it's the true essence is when you I think why your business adds for me because you want to inject there and you want to attract your tribe. I think that's listening. They can start.
I mean, not for nothing, the content creation tools that we have, like let's just use Instagram and Facebook as a great example. They're not made to reward business owners that are not paying them money for advertising. Like we're running uphill here. We are facing out,
and it's
yeah. So if if you don't want to do a song and dance on Instagram or TikTok, then you have to really think outside the box and focus on just speaking to your people at that point. Don't try to be everything to everybody. So I run down this rabbit hole too, where I try different platforms and I try different apps, and I'm like, maybe my people are here, maybe my people are here, and it can leave me feeling like nobody wants me, right? Like worthless a little bit. And why are we letting an app determine that for us? Like that's not how I want. Yeah, that's not how I want my business to run. So
moments there. I like. Okay. Now, thank you for that. Should we repurpose our content?
Okay, we're going into like a totally different topic now. So
Sorry?
content. No, I like it. I'm like, I'll go anywhere. So for those who don't know, because content repurposing is kind of like one of those like jargony words, right? So repurposing is basically
yeah.
like it's when we would take something like this podcast episode and we would turn it into something else. So Nicolette might turn it into an entire blog post. I might take one of your questions and turn that into a social media post, right? So we're kind of like taking whatever little, so here's a little nugget for you in and of itself. But it basically is taking a form of content and turning it into something new. It is not, and I always remind people of this, it's not copying and pasting. So like if I post something onto Facebook and then I copy and paste it over to LinkedIn, that's just called cross-posting. That's not repurposing. Repurposing is actually making it into something new. Okay. So I think let's just like use a podcast interview as an example. I really like podcast interviews as repurposing because basically every question you've asked me, I could turn around and make into a post. If you got a takeaway from today's episode, you could take that and turn that into a post. And you could even make it relevant to your own business. It doesn't have to be about this interview. So thinking about like when you're in these situations, I like doing it with client calls. When I'm in a client call and I get asked a question that nobody's ever asked me before, or maybe that everybody asks me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm turning that into a piece of content. So taking things that are like already happening in your content creation world and turning them into other things is like one of my favorite things to do. Mine that I most often do is that I'll take a blog and I'll turn it into a podcast, or I'll take a podcast and I'll turn it into a blog. So that for me is just like an easy boom, boom, like I already have the transcript or it's just me talking. So the knowledge is up here and I can just take that and turn it into a blog. And then, I mean, you could take the blog and turn that into 5 more things, right? So you can like actually see how it like, you don't have to create nearly as much content. You just kind of create these big pieces and it can become other pieces.
That was God speaking to me. You just
No.
I mean imagine I have spoken to so many people and there
Yeah.
are so many things that I've learned from them. Them are actually can be repurposed to my what I'm trying to people, treatment therapy and life coaching. And I was trying to I think this and trying to figure out how can I make this work for thank you so much.
Yeah. With an
Because I
interview
did
podcast, you have a harder job. You have to take other people's knowledge and then make it apply to yours. And I used to be in your shoes, so I know how you feel. And I think that you can still do it. And I think you can also do fun things with like leading up to interviews, like what questions you can ask your audience, like what questions do you have around this topic or for this person, like what kind of things do you want to hear from this person? So it's a harder job when you have a person who has a different business from you, but it still can be done and you can have a lot of fun with it.
things to consider and things to do now. Okay. Yay. Okay. Moving to a different topic.
Okay, so
I'm everywhere.
collaborations, that's okay. There's a lot that like honestly, we could probably do an entire episode on collaborations. I don't know where to start without a probably more specific question. So if you have I could think of 20 things.
For
Yeah.
example.
Okay, right now you and I are collaborating on a podcast. So one of the things in a collaboration is that it's like one person plus one person coming together to create something bigger. And it doesn't just have to be one person and one person. It could be one person and 20 people, right? But we're always coming together to create something bigger than ourselves. So we're creating something for your listeners, which means we're like impacting lives of other people and you're being impacted and I'm being impacted. So you see how like I went from just like working in my little home office, you went from working in your little cafe, we come together and now we're creating this conversation has never happened. Like maybe in an alternate universe, but this has never occurred before. So I love thinking of it like that because it has a lot of power to it when you think of it like that. And all that to say, when I sit down for a podcast interview, or when you sit down to a podcast interview, it's not just another appointment in our calendars. It's something we actually want to like take with a little bit of like a responsibility, and I think that's like my number one thing in a collaboration. I think a lot of people think when they're collaborating with somebody, they're just going to kind of like ride their coattails, or like, oh, they have a big platform, so they'll share this, or, I'll be able to use their audience for this. And instead, I like to think of it as like a give. Like we're all giving here. We're all giving to each other. You're giving me this conversation. You're giving me access to your listeners who are like, that's your precious community, and you're giving me that gift, like you're like, here, you get to speak to them. That's huge. And I'm giving you whatever, like, I don't know, morsels of value I have. I'm just like, here, take something.
You gave me a lot already.
Well, you're so sweet. So, but do you know what I mean? So I want to come into it with a giver's mindset, and you want to approach it from a giver's mindset. And that to me, that was like the most fundamental thing in making a good collaboration. It's almost like when you find the right collaboration, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? We could be doing a podcast interview, we could be doing a blog together. It doesn't matter, but we're both approaching it with that same mindset of like, I want to just give back in this way. Yeah. Yes.
Creating synergy. Okay.
Yes. Synergy,
Okay.
reciprocity. Those are words I love using around collaboration.
Brilliant.
There you go.
We're already at 22 minutes. I think I need to invite you.
Okay, I'm game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot.
So,
There's
Emily,
a
what
lot.
work?
There's a lot.
Yeah, I feel it's not enough. It's not enough right now. I want to continue your brain, right? And this is for
What work am I most proud of? I'm really proud of growing my business over the past 6 years. I think that's a big accomplishment. But I think a lot of the work that I'm most proud of is actually just like my own inner work. I think I've really started to like understand myself a little bit more. I've let myself go some deep, dark, scary places and come out of them. Yeah, so and I think like just like growing in myself as a person has been really, I don't know. I mean, that's what we all are doing on this journey, but I think and I can't even be proud of it because like I didn't have a choice to be the way that I am. I just am. But I still am
No, but
excited that it's happened.
it takes courage to face your deepest part of yourself. Because I too went, I think several. It's not a fun experience. Your own shadows, because
Mhm.
more than once. But we always come out stronger, I think, and wiser, and connect more. We understand ourselves better. And for those, I'm into spirituality as well, and that's how I connect to. I used to feel worried because of my divorce and my burnout at work, and that forced me to go to face myself. So
Yeah.
you can tell when somebody has done the work or has started their work, at least.
Yeah, I
So
agree. Well, today I just made a list of the last kind of like 12 things I want to make sure I do before the summer is over. So I think I'm working on that list, and it's little things. Like it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I still get together with this friend and take a walk before the summer is over. I want to go to the ocean before the summer is over. I want to make sure I go see my niece and nephew before the summer is over. So little things like that. Like full disclosure, my business gets a little slow in July and August. So I take advantage of that time by like working on the house and working on like I work on reading things that I want to read and just having fun, working on the behind the scenes in my business. So I'm kind of, I'll tell you what I'm working on. I'm getting myself ready for a very busy September, October, November, December, because that will happen in my business. And so I'm kind of like, all right, I have to take care of all the fun stuff before I focus fully back in on work. And I think a lot of people like in this area, that's kind of how we all feel because of the way the seasons are. you just kind of like, you have to take advantage of like the warm weather. And then when it starts to get chilly, everybody kind of like hunkers down, works hard, does all their projects on their computer, like that kind of thing. So I'm preparing to
Wow.
go. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I cannot relate because in Malaysia
Right.
it's just like one weather all.
Right.
So it's like warm and humid and tropical all year round. So, but right now it is hot. But then blackout period would be the holidays, which is time, some other vacations that we had throughout the year. So,
Yeah. That's the hope. That's the hope. I've been doing and I want to encourage anybody listening and maybe you too, but I've really been enjoying this year, like getting more connected to my local community. I live in a really small, like rural town, and I was so focused on like going all the places, like just like going everywhere. And now I'm like kind of trying to make things a little bit like smaller and more local and more close to home. And it's been so awesome. Like I've just been able to connect with like business owners that are right in my backyard. And it's really been a rewarding experience. So I forget the exact way you worded the question, but that's my answer.
oh no, yeah, it was just what is next? It was just that and perfectly. And okay, so may I also, can you let me in on the secret? What do you do with do barbecues? What do you guys do? Like I often see
No.
this in front of the TV.
Funny, I'm not that American.
Okay.
So no, I'm just
Because
kidding.
we
I'm just
have
kidding.
that in TVs,
Yeah.
they do cookouts and whatnot. I'm like, oh, okay. That's the first
I'm
thing
just
came to
kidding.
mind.
So I do a lot of like workshops locally and things like that, like from a business perspective. But most of my friends and I, we do a lot of like we'll organize like walks or hikes or like outdoor stuff. Like a lot of people like outdoors here during the nice months. Even during the not nice months, we still try to like get active and moving. And I think it's such a good way to like sort of take care of two things in one. Because like you're interacting and networking and like brainstorming and masterminding, but you're also moving your
And you're
body.
moving.
You're also in nature. Yeah. So lots of stuff like that. And then like I like artistic and creative things. Like I'll pretty much do anything. If someone's like, want to do pottery or glass blowing or painting? I'm like, yes, sign me up. So I'm not very good at painting, and actually
Wow.
that's one I'm done paying for.
Oh.
I'm done paying to be miserable. but but I'll try most of those other things. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so that's stuff we like to do, just
Awesome.
yeah. Hey, I mean, one day a
Sounds
friend
like
called me
fun.
and wanted to just hang out in the backyard. We just laid in the backyard and stared at the blue sky for 4 hours. So it's, you know what? I say no
I'd do
limits.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think creatives, we're all creators. We're all be, you know. I've only learned about that. I've always pegged before growing up that I don't know how to paint. I always like discount myself to not good at painting or anything on the creative side. So I found because all actually we're creating and we're create first, co-creating with first. So you can never say that you're not. That's just I think that's a betrayal of your very soul, And and I don't know, people might say that Nick is sometimes I was in the for this I think if you had known me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'm not like this. Like, yeah, I was so disconnected with my I think inner self, the creative side, because I always say, okay, we're human
Yeah.
beings.
To the point of creativity, I think you nailed it. Like we think, oh, being creative means I need to paint well, or I need to paint perfectly,
Yeah.
or I need to draw perfectly or write perfectly. No, it's just doing it. It's just like being it. It's just knowing that
Yeah.
whatever is
Yeah.
coming out of you is a creative act. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's original because it's
Yeah.
from you. I love it. Okay. Emily, we're gonna pivot to a self-worth question because, well, my podcast word. So, and I have a question for my guest. And your question would be, negative self-opinion, what strategies can individuals use to challenge and change?
Well, I'm gonna say hypnotherapy. And I really mean it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you don't work with somebody like yourself, like getting some sort of self hypnotherapy, if you're the right candidate for that, that can be really helpful for you. I like journaling and like reframing things. So like, once you have journaled something out, you have to actually sit down and look at it and reframe it for yourself. And I also think like having somebody in your life that can actually show you where you're talking negatively to yourself and saying, hey, maybe don't talk to my friend like that. Like my friend, you don't talk to her like that. And then we have to start treating ourselves like we are our friends because we are the best friend that we'll ever have at the end of the day. So those are my three. I mean, I gave you three, but those are my ideas. Journaling with reframing, hypnotherapy, which has been really huge for me, and having somebody in your life that can help show you where you're doing those things to yourself.
I love it.
Say it again. Oh gosh.
Your heart screams.
Honestly, peace. And I don't mean this in like in a Miss America way, but like I just wish everybody would be peaceful. And like if we don't like each other, it's okay. We can just leave each other be and let each other be in our own little worlds, but like just like, that is what I think is my first greatest wish for myself, for my own life, for my own brain, and for everybody else around me. Yeah.
That's me.
Oh, mine is probably not good.
No, you're
I
discrediting yourself too much.
I often say the only way through is through, and I mean like have you ever had those days where you're just laying on the floor staring at the ceiling like everything is terrible, I can't do it, and everything just feels overwhelming
Trust
and
me.
like you just want to like cry. Like I don't know. I
Yes.
always say like the only way
Yes.
through is through, meaning I have to take a step. And it's funny. I did that when I was like 16. I had like a meltdown in front of my mom, and she's like, "Okay, well, nothing is gonna get better until you get up off the floor and take the first step." And I was like, "Oh, she's right." Like, I have to
True.
take the
Okay, I still have to do it.
yeah. So, I mean, that is really, it doesn't matter how you go through. You can go through messy, you can go through bumpy, you can go through the long way, the short way, doesn't matter. But really, the only way through is through. And that's how I always find answers too. Like, I got to get to the other side before I know what through even means. So, yeah, it's
Like,
weirdly like a hope,
putting
like a constantly like hoping that things, a curiosity about things getting better and just being like, all right, I gotta get up and I gotta keep going because I'm curious about whether or not
I
this story
love
ends
it.
well.
I love how we're tying this all together. Wow. Okay, now I'm gonna ask this question. If you could create a quote right now for you to end the
That's a lot of pressure. What's yours?
failing forward.
Oh, okay. So like
But
two kind of words,
it
yeah?
doesn't have to. No, somebody, my guess, they pick from they rephrase it from other
Okay. Actually, I have one for me and everybody that relates to this. It's stop overthinking and start experimenting. And I think I am a chronic overthinker. I'm a chronic worrier. I worry about things that haven't happened, that will happen, that may happen, that could happen, that possibly will happen. And I need to stop overthinking and just start experimenting, like playing with the what if,
I love it. Just because the only way is true.
Yeah. You have
You
to get
the-
through.
it's
Yeah.
all-
Yeah. And yours and mine go together because when you fail, you still can be moving forward and failing. Like all failure is just information to keep moving, or to take a different direction or like
Exactly.
it's just all helpful. I've failed many, many times. And it's always like, oh, good. I'm glad I know. I'm sorry it took me 6 years to figure it out, but I'm glad I know, right? So I would love, since everybody's like listening to a podcast right now, I'd love to say come listen to my podcast also. It's called Content with Character. But if you if you can't find it or you're not really into finding more podcasts, just EmilyAborn.com. And that's the best way to find me on all the places.
Awesome. And there you have it, guys. You heard it from the person, her Emily Aborn. Before, I'd like to thank you personally for the work that you're doing for the world and for advancing step the way despite the challenges, creating trails for those that will come through you. And for our listeners, this has been that one podcast with that controversial name, You're Worthless. Be that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, if you find yourself that you are worthless, you're probably not alone. But more importantly, ask yourself deeper. If I'm worthless, then why the heck am I here? It is because your soul chosen to be here energetically all the way from the ethers and for
Thank you for having me.